welcome back. Now we're going to combine our existing knowledge from those two exercises, review mining and the before you niche board. So first thing, please reopen your before you niche board. Make sure you've got that open here. And we're going to add some situational characteristics from the insights that we've developed with our review mining. So these can also be thought of as contextual characteristics. So that's the context of the prospect's life at the time, right? It's actually not hard. We've been building up to this with everything that we've done to date, okay? So we know what our sweet spot service is. We know the characteristics of our ideal client. So we're starting to get a really good picture of who this person is. And now we want to define that person's situation, meaning we want to know what's going on that has them go looking for a solution, not necessarily our solution. And this is really going to uncover the meat of our niche statement. Okay, so let's head over to the Trello board here. This is the before you niche board again. So first, we want to add 3 new lists to our board here. So the first one is going to be situational characteristic before. So to do that, you're just going to click add another list over here, type in the title, and hit enter. The second list is going to be called situational characteristic after. Add another list, title, enter. And then the final one that we want to add is called ideal future. So we're going to add another list, hit enter, and we're done. Okay, so we've got situational characteristic before, situational characteristic after, and ideal future. So starting with the situational characteristic before, we want to ask, what's their situation at the moment when they decided they needed a solution? And I like to do this just by imagining the prospect doing a Google search for a solution, right? And then step back one step and say, why? What happened to make them start searching? Let me give you an example. Imagine your prospect is a parent, and in your characteristics, you've defined that she's a working mother. She's working 40 plus hours a week with an executive husband who works 50 plus hours a week, and they have 2 or more kids under 5 years old. So those are some examples of characteristics that you might have defined, right? Married, 2 or more kids under 5, works 40 plus hours, doesn't get any help around the house from her husband because he's working 50 plus hours, but he's an executive, so he's bringing in enough money that they can afford you, which is a very important characteristic to have. So you've done all of that work already. Now let's say that your sweet spot service is organically grown home-cooked meals delivered fresh daily. So what was going on in this girl's life immediately before she got on Google to search for a solution to her problem? What was her situation? Well, quite likely, she was struggling to find the time to cook a healthy food for her family. So I would put that under situational characteristic before. How do you know that? Well, because your review mining just told you, okay? So that's what her situational characteristic was before she went looking for help, and as it directly relates to the solutions that you offer. Notice it's not just food. Anyone can dial a pizza. It's healthy food. Another example, imagine you're an eye doctor and your sweet spot service is cataract surgery for elderly patients. Because you only perform your sweet spot service, you're an expert, you're easily found by people who need you, and you've developed enough efficiencies in your process that cannot be found in a generalist eye doctor because it's all you do, right? So your prospect's characteristics might be elderly, or maybe you would have said 60 or 70 or over 60 or 70, whatever you think qualifies, and they don't have health insurance, or for some reason, vision is not included in their health insurance. So what's going on in this person's life that has him begin to search for a solution? What's his situational characteristic? Well, this one's pretty simple. He's developing cataracts. That's the inciting event that had him go looking for a solution. That's the only person that you want because that's your sweet spot service. Cataract surgery for elderly patients without health insurance. Let me give you another example. Imagine your prospect is a medium-sized business owner. So the characteristics that you require might be he's been in business for over 10 years, he's got 35 or more staff, and he's producing revenues of between $5 and $15 million. He's also successful because he's willing to seek guidance and the assistance of experts rather than trying to do it all himself. And because of that, he's open to new ideas and insight, right? Basically, he leaves his ego at the door and he's in it for the good of the company, because that ultimately means his own personal good too. So those are the characteristics that he must have. But what was going on in his world that made him go looking for you? What was his situational characteristic? Well, again, let's look at your sweet spot service. Imagine that your sweet spot service was optimizing after sale onboarding, okay? The client onboarding that the clients go through after they've purchased. What was going on in his business that made him call you? Well, I imagine something like high refund rates, okay? Because he's gone looking for someone to optimize the after sale onboarding. Again, how would you know that he's experiencing high refund rates? Well, he told you during review mining. These are the realities that your prospects are experiencing and that you've just been uncovering during review mining, okay? Given this client's time in business, he's been in business for 10 years, I would suspect we might even be able to think that it's a spike in refund rates comparable to previous years, because otherwise he probably doesn't make it to 10 years in business, right? Possibly he even launched a new product, and that's what's receiving high refund rates. If that's the case, if you're a product brand specialist, that's a pretty spectacular prospect, right? And if you're competing with generalist brand agencies or marketing companies, not only do you get the job, you'll do a better job, you'll produce more value for him because it's what you specialize in, and you'll get paid more to do it. And so situational characteristic before is going to be super important for your niche. Okay, next step, situational characteristic after. Let's talk about the things that these prospects want. So what they're trying to achieve as a result of working with your sweet spot service. And quite often, this will actually be a description at some level of what your sweet spot service delivers. Maybe they want to, for example, double their revenue. So I would put that in under sweet spot characteristic after. Double their revenue. Maybe your sweet spot service specializes in increasing revenue from existing customers in their funnel through using upsells and order bumps. Well, that could very well double their revenue. Or maybe, looking at our previous example, maybe they want to reduce their refunds, okay? So the guy that was experiencing high return rates or high refund rates, what's his situational characteristic afterwards? Well, fewer refunds means he's probably experiencing higher profits. That's his situational characteristic afterwards. Higher profits or more profitable, however you want to word that. Again, look into what your review mining has told you. Maybe it's higher revenue, or maybe it's time savings for support staff, right? That would be massive. If you can reduce his refunds and you free up his support staff who are currently spending all their time dealing with refunds, well, now they've got more time to be delivering a better quality of support to the clients. Well, that might be something that you'd improve through your onboarding service as well, okay? So if your review mining said that he was experiencing too high refunds and he wanted to fix that, maybe it also said that his definition of the situational characteristic afterwards was that he could free up his support staff so that they could actually support the paying clients instead of wasting all of their time on issuing refunds and going through all of that rigmarole, okay? Remember, we're talking about identifying the person who will benefit the most from the results that your sweet spot service provides, okay? And then finally, the ideal future. Now, this is probably the only one that's not going to be a direct correlation to your review mining, especially if you don't have a particularly emotionally driven audience. You can find these answers in review mining if you do have an emotionally driven audience, because they'll write them. But often, they'll be much more factual in review mining. So, this next step, this is really the answer to the so what question, okay? They get reduced refunds, so what? So you'll need to dig in a little here, but this is where the connection is going to be made with this niche statement to your clients, to your prospects. So sticking with that reduced refund rate business, what does increasing profits, increasing revenue, and saving time for the support staff do for this company as it relates to your sweet spot service? Remember, you were bought, in this example, you were bought in to help reduce the refund rate of their product. So why is that important? What ideal future do they get from that experience? Well, I'd argue that the company would have better morale, and across the board, they would have more confidence in launching new products, okay? So that would be the ideal future, is more confidence to launch new products in the future. Now, they might actually say that in your review mining. They might say something like, we've lost confidence in launching products because of our high refund rate. If that's there, fantastic. That's a really easy line to draw to the ideal future of having more confidence. But they also might just stop at saying reduced refunds. So that's going to be on you to dig until you find the emotion. And the emotion is going to be things like confidence and clarity and pride and peace of mind, right? These sort of things. So speaking of peace of mind, what about the busy mum? Well, going back to the example of healthy food, if your sweet spot service is an easy way for her to feed her kids without compromising on nutrition, why is that important? What does she get? What's the ideal future? Well, I would argue that her ideal future would be peace of mind that she's looking after her children. Okay? Or potentially satisfaction and pride that she's being a good parent. Okay? Those are two very realistic ideal futures that someone in that situation might be looking for. Okay? So the ideal future, why is that important? We're typically selling this stage towards emotional and the illogical side, right? So it's usually related to an emotion or a desire. So that's your exercise before the next lesson. Start from thinking about that understanding of your sweet spot service and the results that it delivers. Think of the no-brainer characteristics of the prospect that you defined in the earlier lesson. Ask yourself, what are the situational characteristics of this client, right? So what was happening before they called you? What inciting event was going on that had them sit down and Google a solution? What do they get as a direct result of you performing your sweet spot service for them? And why is that important? What's the ideal future? You don't have to come up with hundreds here, right? Just get down what you think. You can always come back and redo this at any time. There's nobody watching. This is your business asset, right? So once you've got those situational characteristics done, head over to the next lesson and we're going to finish out this module. We're going to turn all this insight and research into your unique niche statement. So head over there when you're done and I'll see you there.